Okay, welcome to the Windsurfing podcast. We're back again live this week. It's been a busy week, I tell you what, but we have a pretty cool one, I think, for this week. A little bit different. We've got a guy who is embarking on his first ever full tour of the PWA. And we thought it'd be interesting to follow him throughout the year, basically have a chat with him after every event, kind of hear about what happened, a bit behind the scenes, the highs, the lows, and what it's like to really compete on the PWA Tour. Now, he has done a few events before, but this year he seems to have took a more serious step. He's got some new sponsors. He's been in Tenerife training, and we're going to talk to him all about that in this podcast. So it's live. You guys at home get your chance to ask the questions. Maybe it's equipment based. Maybe it's, it could be emotional based, or what, his thoughts behind it. Maybe there's a few of you out there thinking, maybe I might do that one day, or maybe some young up and comers. So that's kind of how it's going to be set. So let's bring him in. Let's introduce him. If I can work this thing. Here he is.
Hello.
This is Michele Becker. Obviously, you might have seen him on Nico Preen's channel. He's made a few cameo appearances recently. You're in Germany now. How is it over there in Germany? Nice and warm, I bet.
Yeah, not exactly. We are back to something like 8 degrees when it's cold. When the sun is out, it's 12. But okay. I think the water is still at 10 degrees. So today was pretty cold. As soon as the sun is not there anymore, and we had some rain, and So still like full hooded. I don't know. I put something under my normal wetsuit. I have a rain jacket on to get off the windshield. It's still a hustle.
Yeah, well, like I said, for everyone who doesn't know, I'm in Portugal. It's boiling here today. So if I look a bit
cannot
red,
imagine that.
I am dying. But Michele, you've obviously, I've just sort of give you a quick intro. Maybe we can have a little bit of intro for people who don't know you, because you've been behind the scenes. You've done, from what I know, you've done the German tour quite regularly, but this year you're going full PWA. Talk us through a bit of background and what's led you to this decision.
Yeah, so I think I've been doing competitions since already 11 years on the German national tour, and I think already since 5 years, or since ever, I was really the upcoming youth guy alongside others. And then since 5 years, I'm always chasing Nico Preen, Gunnar Asmussen, and Vincent Langer. And then since about 2 years, I was able to finally beat them in a race here and there. And then since last year, I was also winning some events. And as you mentioned before, I did some PWAs, mainly on Sylt. I did it twice because, I know the area and it's quite close. So why not trying? And but now I feel ready for the PWA. I always thought, okay, I don't want to spend so much money in the end to go for a 30th place, so I want to be competitive. And so that's why I'm going to do it this year.
That's good. It's exciting, man. What is your aim? Have you got like a sort of a place? You must have. Do you want to tell us? Is that something
I already told before in the video I uploaded to my channel. I would be happy with finishing top 15 in the annual ranking. Usually in the past few years, I tried to not look at the results so much, because sometimes early in my career, I then took it too safe on the last eliminations, because I thought, oh no, I could drop a place or two. Yeah. And now I just try to win every race I'm in, or at least for the national levels. With PWA, it's also good to just advance.
Yeah.
And so I would say top 15 is my goal.
So to date, what's your best results been? Firstly, how old are you now?
I'm 24.
24.
Yeah.
Give us some stats. How tall are you? What's your weight? Because it looks like, I'm not saying you're fat, but you've definitely put on a bit of weight compared to the previous years.
Yeah. So I'm not that tall. I'm 181. And my weight coming to Tenerife was 95 kilos. But now coming back from Tenerife, it's more like 92. Okay. So it's the same struggle like always. So I try to be above 90 for the season.
Yeah, that seems to be the go-to weight, doesn't it? I speak to a lot of people for the not
Yeah.
really tall guys. They're aiming for low to mid 90s. Would that be fair?
Yeah, but even on Tenerife, maybe it was just in my head, but I think I realized or I felt a difference between, let's say, January when I was comfortable and I was heavy compared to March when I was a bit lighter, because these
Okay.
3 kilos can make a difference sometimes.
Yeah, that's really interesting because when
Yeah.
you're talking a 92, 93, 94, those little kilos to a normal person doesn't
Yeah.
sound a lot. But are you noticing the weight? Because obviously we've got to talk about it. For people who don't know, obviously PWA is now foil and fin. So you've got to be able to do both. When you're talking about weight, are you talking about that for the fin or the foil or both, or you find it makes a difference in everything?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar for both. Because before, when we only had fin, basically 5 years ago, there still everyone tried to be at 95 kilograms.
Yeah.
So, and then with the foiling for 1 or 2 years, I thought, okay, because that was the time when I was still gaining weight. So I tried to be at 88 or something, because I thought it was enough. But in the end, also the IQ guys, they all went up to 100. So in the end, we need to be heavy for both. And I'm not saying you can't do it when you're light, but in some situations it's just easier and you're more consistent with more weight. That's at least how I feel.
Well, from a lighter rider, I used to do like longboard Olympics, and every time I've ever tried to do anything with involves shortboard, slalom, weight is a problem. And for me personally, what I found is the cruising speed is just way slower. If I go off the gas, I literally go backwards. If I'm pushing on the edge of everything,
Yeah.
I'm competitive-ish. I'm not fast enough, but I'm competitive-ish. As soon as I relax, like some of the big guys do, man, I am backdoor. Is that
Oh,
what you
really?
find? Like your cruising speed is just consistent, or you're pushing like in a slalom race? Are you pushing the whole time? Like you are on the
You
edge
mean
the
now
whole.
on fin now, for example,
Yeah,
or?
I think. I bet. Well, talk through both. I
Yeah.
guess we're both related now.
Okay, so honestly, most of the time I'm taking the safer approach. So I go, let's say, I rather go 90% the whole race. For example, if it's Tenerife 2-meter waves, and not pushing fully, because in the end, if you crash or have a heavy touchdown on a fall, then you for sure lose more than if you would just go consistently around the course. So this is at least a strategy which works for me. And when you were talking about the speeds, the ground speed, I don't really know. But for example, on fin, I remember also from back in the days, when I put on 5 kilos more, you can really feel in the gusts. You're not lifting out of the water anymore. You're just pressing the board like always and just going a bit quicker. So I would say in the gust, it's the biggest difference.
Yeah, it's acceleration, isn't it? And that's what I think some people don't realize. Like on the outside, you look in, you think, but if you're lighter, you're going to go through the lulls, you're going to accelerate quicker. But it's almost the opposite.
Yeah, and I have no idea why that is. Honestly,
I agree.
For me, it does make sense, because you also want to have the lightest board. If you have the same board from production, you want to have the lightest one, or with the sails. But in the end, why? Why is it good to be heavy and the gear light?
I mean, I've talked about this on the channel before because it still blows my mind. But Luderitz, I found that out. Like the heavy guys would go better through the holes. Like they would keep the momentum. I'm like, it just blows my mind, because I'm like, that to me doesn't make sense. It just, but I guess that is how it's working. Okay, so what do you favor? That's for me an interesting question. If you had the choice, would you rather race against the top boys on the foil, or would you rather against the top boys on the fin?
Definitely on the foil.
The foil.
Before I was also a big fan of fin, and I was totally against foil. So let's say 2018 or whenever it got really big, also on world tour and national levels. For me, I always saw the costs and the development and so on. But now, as I'm more inside, I just enjoy the the racing on the fall, you know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
And
go on.
yeah, and now I'm also a bit better on fall, you know. I think I kept my fin level throughout the past years, and I think I can still race well and put up some good results, maybe top 20, you know. But on fall, I really know that I can also beat some of the world champs, you know, in good racing. And on fin, I'm not consistent enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. What do you think's changed over the winter? Again, people who just tuned in, I know you spent the winter over in Tenerife doing the TWS training. How was that? Is that your first time at the full training camp?
No, actually not. It was, I think, my 4th time that I spent the whole winter there. And so I also have the feeling that whenever I come to, let's say, national competitions or in different countries, whatever, that people don't know me too well, but actually I know all the PWA riders and how good they are, how they train and so on, because I've been there since 2018.
Yeah.
But so far I was just doing the German tour, and yeah. So
what have you noticed over those, say, 4 years or how many ever years it's been in the training? Have you noticed anything this year different? I'm guessing you've been spending more time on foil. Any riders that we have maybe gained a lot during the winter? How do you think your progression has been? Like anyone else has stepped up?
So the thing which is always in my mind first when I think about, you know, improving and so on, is when you start to foil in strong winds, every time it feels like, oh shit, I'm not going to be competitive. Oh no, rather take the fin and so on. But only after 4 or 5 sessions, you're just so much more comfortable. And yeah, it's crazy how much you improve just within, like, let's say 10 days, especially in stronger winds. And yeah, I think you could see people taking different approaches, whether to go a lot on fin or to skip it completely, you know. Because, for example, if I can do some name dropping, Enrico, as most of people know, he's one of the fastest on the foil. And for example, in strong winds, he's on foil. He was really consistent in the top, but therefore on the fin, he was not doing as well as the years before, you know. So there, I could imagine that he spent a lot of time more on the foil when it was windy, you know. And then you have guys like Jordi and Matteo come to my mind. I think they had also this winter a bit more time on the fin, and they were a bit more consistent also in the races. So yeah.
Who's I mean, again, not off topic, but on the same topic, who do you see world champion next year?
Oh, that's so tough. That's so tough because
or top 3, because it's an interesting one now, isn't it? You know, Antoine Albo stepped out, so there's gonna be, you know, Maciek obviously won last year, but not so many events. You know, do you see Maciek getting back on the podium? I mean, it's a difficult one for you, putting you on the spot.
It is.
But just out of the training that you've seen, we're going to talk about the French event that you just went to as well, because that's an interesting one as well. Who's looking good? Like, who would you say?
Okay, that's really tough. Just yesterday, I had a talk with Vincent about it and some other German guys. I think this year we're gonna have a lot of different elimination winners and also event winners, which was not happening so much in the past because of the big 3, top 3, and so on. So for sure we have Matteo, which is ever consistent. Then Pierre alongside him. And then we still have this kind of new generation of Maciek, Enrico, Jordi. So I have easily 5 already. And then, of course, there's Nico Goya. There is, I don't know, Johan Sö from out of nowhere. So it's hard. Do you have someone in your mind?
Well,
When
you know
I'm
what?
thinking about top
I have
three?
spent quite a lot of time out of the loop this winter, so I've not really seen it, which is why I'm interested in speaking to someone like you who's been there. You're seeing what's happening on a daily basis, but obviously that's only one training camp. There are other guys training, and maybe this is a good idea just to bring in the French. I think you went to the French Championships the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like it was absolutely howling. Like what?
I've never
40
sailed
knots?
in so much wind before with the slalom gear.
Crazy.
And it's funny. Before I only had 6.2 as the smallest sail, or last year 5.8, and I always thought, okay, even when it's 5 knots windier, I just keep going. But man, when it's then really 45 knots, you wish for that 5.0 slalom sail so badly.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because I spoke to a few people. I spoke to some guy. It's slightly different, but they were going to Pozo, and he was going, no, I'll be fine on a 3.7. I'm like, mate, when it's going, it's going.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. I've
It's
sailed.
hard to imagine.
I saw him there, and he was begging the shop to lend him a 3.0. It was just ridiculous. I can imagine in slalom, it's like when you go to the Defi. I've heard some people go, yeah, just hold on to my 6.2 or whatever. I can always hold on to it. I'm like, oh yeah, you just wait, because when it comes in south of France, it cranks. I saw some of the pictures, and the harness lines on like some of the guys sailing, insane. They looked like they were using their foil harness lines or something. They were massive.
Yeah, I did. I just made them super long, sit low, and then.
How long we talking, just for people out there, because they won't have it.
I think I used the ones from Patrick, and I think they're labeled as 44-inch as max, but I think that's when the
max.
No, this is when the protection ends out of the cover, the plastic kind of tube, but you can still make them a bit longer. So I measured, because we want to make even longer, and my maximal sailing length for foil was 50-inch.
Oh my God. I mean, for people who can't quite comprehend that, there's a few of you out there, and a lot of you are Germans, using like 22s and 24s.
I did.
I mean, that's insane. I mean, I use 32s, which are quite long, considerable. A lot of people go, oh my God, they're long. 34s is very long. 36, something in the 40s to 50s is, I mean, that's huge. That's
crazy. But you can only sail with that if you're powered up, because this is why we have this clamp cleat, which is super easy and super quick to adjust, because as you say, if you're then not powered up anymore, you have nothing to lean in against. So
what's the idea of having harness lines that long? What's because it's on the foil we're talking here.
On the fin, I think it's still 36, so how it was in the days as the longest. But honestly, I think now as we have longer, we also use longer for the fin, because now we are able to make it a bit longer. And so the theory is, I think it's all about control in the end, because first of all, you get the sail a bit further away from you, so you have, even if a gust comes or a chop or whatever, you have more way technically to adjust. And I think the center of gravity is also important. So, and for foiling, I think, which I also did in the end now of the training, we put the boom maybe a bit higher than on fin. Okay. So we basically counter the few inches already, and then I think that's the reason.
Interesting, because I saw the podium for the French Championships, and one of the young Frenchies is on there.
Lohan, Jules, probably.
Yeah, Jules, exactly. He finished third, did he?
Yeah, he did.
And he's just come out of the youth, or he's still a youth? I know it's.
I don't even know that.
Yeah, but I mean, he was third, and that's quite a competitive field, the old Frenchies, isn't it?
But it was interesting to see, because I personally didn't perform at all. I did all the mistakes I can think of. For example, sailing in the wrong heat because I checked the wrong seating, then didn't get planning before the stars, did over early, and so on. But that's why I had time to watch the finals instead of being in them. And Pierre was by far winning. So that was not even close. It was literally a one reach. He was
Really
in front, yeah. And behind that, it was quite mixed up. So yeah, it was quite, let's say the top 8, maybe top 10 was really tight, yeah.
interesting. So,
But it was fin only, unfortunately.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, speaking of fin only, let me just share this screen because I was just thinking, let's have a look at the calendar for the PWA. Let's have a look at the events,
Oh
what
yeah,
we've
that's
got.
good.
I think that's going to be a something good to look out for. Let me just share that. Is that sharing?
Yes.
So racing events, what have we got? We've got Lake Garda, top of lake. Obviously not Fiji, that's not slalom. The rumor I heard is Gran Canaria is slalom.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, there's the mark.
That is, I mean, that's insane.
But I mean, you have been there. How is it there? Because, and do you have any idea how the event will look? Because I heard it's basically when it's too light for wave riding, we're gonna go. Then we have perfect wave riding conditions with, I don't know, 35 knots and waves. But when it's too windy, the waves start to decrease again, and then we're get sending out. Is it like that?
Basically, I was there like when I first started doing the PWA, which was about 2003 or something. They were still doing slalom there then. Yeah. So we used to be, as wave sailors, we would take bets on the races and watch all the races because we weren't competing. And I mean, that is some of the most fun slalom I have watched because it is full on. You know, just like you say, in silt, it's different. You know, silt, the racers get put out in the light winds, and as soon as it gets windy, the shore break's too big, you guys can't go out. Whereas in Pozo, sometimes, like you say, if there's not much swell and it's blowing, you guys are on because the waves are flat. So I'm going to be interested. Is it still like with the PWA, you have to register your equipment at the beginning of the year?
Yes, we do.
And what's the stipulations? What is the how many sails? How many?
We can register 6 sails and 3 boards. And,
okay, so give me a talk through. What are you thinking? Give me a talk through before we go through these events, and then we'll kind of.
So for me and for most of the guys, it's 4 foil sails and 2 fin sails mainly. Okay. And for example, I have for the foil 8-4, 7-2, 6-0, and 4-8. So the whole range split up and with 1.2 square meters steps. And then for the fin sails, I have 6-2 and 5-6.
Okay.
So
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And so for you, when would you use the fin over the foil at the moment?
At the moment, only when I really have to. So let's say shore break, if that comes into play. But then, for example, I would rather go fully overpowered on 4-8 than on 6-2 when it's okay. Because with foil, as soon as there's one little lull on the course and the fin guys are struggling only one jibe, you know, which can always happen, or when they go in the back of the chop and the swell and they stop, you're there, you know. So within one mistake, one jibe, you can catch up 50 meters. And this is what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, actually. So let's go through the events. Like I said, so we got Lake Garda. That's the first slalom event of the year. Give us your thoughts on that. Comfortable with Lake Garda? Looking forward to it?
I've never been there. It's such a shame as a slalom rider, especially.
Me neither. I've never been, actually.
Yeah. So, I want to arrive a few days before for sure, because I think if we go through the entry list, basically everyone has been there, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I think what I heard, it's somewhat 15 to 20 knots. So pretty consistent, 7-2, maybe 8-4 if it's light. And I think, I'm quite confident that I can straight away perform.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, that one. Then you've got Gran Canaria out of the frying pan into the fire.
I am a bit afraid of that, to be honest, because it could be that it's basically maybe almost fin only, because it's just the better choice. And then for sure, I also need to sail fin. And then I could honestly imagine that this being one of the worst events. But as soon as it's not cranking 40 knots and we have to go fin, it's maybe 30 knots and we also can go on foil. I think just like Fuerte, it could be one of my best events. So pretty, huge
Depends.
gap.
I guess it depends on what we get when you guys go racing.
Exactly.
Again, I would look forward to some really windy stuff with a few waves chucked in, because it could happen also that we finish the waves and there's still waves around.
But how is it with the boats? Because, you know, in France, we couldn't finish one elimination because it was too windy. It was 50 knots or something. And now I imagine 50 knots plus swell. This, I mean, how would you want to... It's also for safety, and and so on.
I mean, Pozo, though, it's pretty sheltered in a weird way. I mean, it depends how wavy you're talking. Like for me to watch slalom, even if there's a little wave, even if it's a waist high, even if it's a knee high actual wave, and you're going in 35 knots, it'll be super interesting.
I remember Portugal some years ago when the swell was coming in on the inside marks. I watched the live stream. That was insane.
And that's
the
I
pictures.
mean, exactly. There's this expectation which you just don't have in flatter water or chop. You can see the wave coming, you can see it, and you go, something's going to happen. You know, either they're going to do a nice jump, they're going to soak it up, they're going to hit it badly, they maybe lose some ground. So I like that aspect of it. It just adds this little bit of, nervousness. You don't know.
For sure, yeah. I also enjoy challenging conditions more than, let's say, 9-0 straight going fat water.
I'm looking forward to Pozo. We're gonna have to get the betting slips out again.
But how is it? Is there some kind of harbor, I heard, or do we have to go through the shore break with the foil?
No, you can launch. Well, in theory, normal sailing, you're not allowed to launch from there because there's harbor matter. But I'm pretty sure during the event, it would make sense if you could launch through there. I would think that would be fine. It's where they launched the little boats from as well. So. Yeah, that one's going to be an interesting one. Croatia, it's not a full-blown event, is
it is. So I think I will skip that one. As you can see, it's basically the week after Gran Canaria.
Yeah.
After Pozo. So, first I was thinking about doing it as well, but saving some energy and money.
So what would be your plan? You'd go from Gran Canaria to Furta early, or?
That's a good question. I've not thought about that because let's talk about Fuerte, because that weekend we always have the German championships.
Okay.
So, basically my focus is on the PWA tour, but let's say I don't do well in the first two events, then I might go to the German championships, also depending how I will do in Germany now.
Yes.
So that's still quite open. I was also thinking about driving with a van again to the Canaries, but I want to have the option to go back to Germany or not. So I will take the flight.
I mean, and that's the thing people don't realize. Like the German Championship is a big deal. There's good support for doing well in the German Championships, and
it's basically the event itself is pretty much the same like the World Cup. So exactly the same sport with the same amount of tents and people there. And then also from the media perspective and from inside the windsurfing industry, it's quite nameful. And I've never won it, so for sure I think Basti Kördel said it once that he just wanted to get that out of his checklist, and then he was ready to go to the World Cup. So let's see.
For sure. As a German rider, you want the German national team. It's a good one to have.
But in the end, if I'm somewhat close to top 10, I would maybe just skip this year's championships in Germany and go for a really good PWA result. Depends.
Makes sense.
No,
it makes sense. Like you say, you just got to evaluate as the year's going, doesn't it? And sometimes what you've planned gets totally changed. I mean, I know that. My plans are changing all the time. Okay, so Croatia is 2 stars to no. Fuerteventura, Tenerife, not slalom. Although there was talk about it at one point. I remember hearing some.
I think it's every year in the conversation, but I don't know.
It's not happened yet, so let's see. Peru, obviously not. And then Zilt.
Ooh. Yeah, Zilt is always a tough event.
So do you like Zilt? Obviously, you've sailed there a lot.
Yeah.
Is it an event you like?
I like it a lot. especially the events we have in Germany. Sometimes we have 2 a year. For example, this year we have this called summer opening in May, and we have the German Championships in July. And usually the weather is good in July. May can be still pretty cold, and same with the World Cup then later in the year. I think the weather is really hard, and have a 10-day event. It's pretty exhausting.
Yeah,
I think people cannot imagine how, especially as a rider or as somebody working there, being involved. Also for you, I can imagine it's non-stop 10 days. So much also for the mind, for the body.
It's a long event, so like you say, people don't realize how long 10 days is, and especially for the racers, because it's not like a Gran Canaria or a Fuerteventura or a Alachati where the wind is going to be kind of from there to there. We're going to stop at this time. Still, they can have you up at 5 a.m. and finishing at 7, 8 at night, and maybe you don't even sail that much, but you're on hold.
If you're in that first heat,
Tricky. It's tricky that you never want to see your name in that first heat. Oh no! Or sometimes the second heat, because the first heat gets the good wind, and then I've seen that happen plenty of times. So, Sil, what if you? Well, we're going to go through a few more events before I ask you what event would you like to win the most. But Yokosuka, Japan, that's racing.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
I'm a bit afraid of that event because of the traveling and so on. Because honestly, I don't enjoy traveling so much because I get quite nervous all the time and always have the worst case scenarios in my mind if I miss that flight or here and there, lose some gear. So I think also not only the event itself, so the races, but also the whole thing will be quite an experience, but
it looks like a good venue for you. I think foil wise, I think it would be probably quite good. And then you've got the dream, the Mia. Ever been to New Caledonia?
No. But I would be, for example, happy if both events will take place as planned, because then basically with one long flight there, you can have 2 events and 2 results and so on. So because flying only for Japan like last year, that's quite a hassle. So
no, it's nice, isn't it? When they team up a bit, when you can get a few events and you can do a little bit of a tour, even if it's a longer time away, there's less massive long flights, because traveling with gear these days is just not fun. It's one of the things which I know normal guys out there thinking, oh, here they go moaning about traveling, but it is a bloody pain these days and expensive. So
it is.
So if you had to win one event on the tour, what would it be? Which one?
I mean, I think I have to take Sylt because home country, big crowd. I think Japan has also a big crowd and so on. But for sure Sylt. But to be honest, I like the roughness of Sylt, but I don't like being as you said, the fleet for the light winds, or we want to see the wave, the freestyle, but it's not happening. Okay, send the races out another day.
Exactly.
So this I don't enjoy. Yeah,
I can imagine. I could definitely imagine that. Right, we've had quite a few questions in. Let me just go and we'll have a look at a few just when we go back through. So we've got Isaac saying, question, what age did you start to focus on flat water and slalom?
Good question. So I started windsurfing when I was 9, and in the beginning when I got a bit better, I was a lot into freestyling. I think I can still do some of the basic moves.
Come on, what's your moves?
I stopped when I was trying, or I did some funnels, some these half switch konos, So I think I land a culo. This is probably my best, but it was more like a forced around, not stylish, and water started.
That's interesting. So where did you grow up? What's your home sort of spot in Germany?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really have a home spot because I was growing up close to Hamburg.
Okay.
And so that's about 100 kilometers away from the sea. And obviously during the week, my parents couldn't drive me. So on the weekends, we were going to Fehmarn mainly. And then I was lucky that I could do a lot of surf camps or sailing camps in the holidays, school holidays. So there I always had 1 or 2 weeks, and then family holidays. So yeah. And I also, for example, I also did the German freestyle battles, and I think my best result is a 9th place. So quite happy with that.
That's interesting because Marco Lang was originally a freestyler as well.
Yeah, true. And he's now back to it a lot. Enjoying
I know. I keep seeing on his Instagram, he's chucking in a few freestyle moves. I think it's really cool. I love it when people mix it up a little bit. I didn't realize you were a freestyler.
Yeah.
So what age did you switch over more to focus on the racing?
So I think, how old was I? I think around 17, 18. It was sometimes still that, or slightly before that after slalom elimination, after the racing, I was still going out on freestyle gear during the events because I liked so much. I wanted to train and going out with my buddies. And I think that stopped about when I was 17, 18, that I basically also spent the windy days, not on the freestyle gear, but on the smaller fin gear. So slalom gear.
So are you fully supported for this season? Is that how it works? Have you got a job on the side? How have you done this? You took time off?
Yeah, so I was with Duathlon and Fnatic the past 5 years, and there I already had a decent deal for the national tour to do it. And so there it started that I could pay some events, some costs with what I got from them. And next to it, I did an apprenticeship. So I wanted to have something in my bag, as you say. So and now I think already since 2 or 3 years, I do windsurfing or maybe even longer, as the main thing in my life. So I plan everything around it. So I want to have my sessions on the water. I want to go to the gym, have my body ready. And then next to it, I do, I don't know, friends, I work, so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, we're going to go through I'm just going to rattle through these questions. How did you get started, your entry into pro windsurfing?
Yeah, this is quite a nice story because, as I said, I was quite good in the youth category in Germany. I was gaining also places in the overall rankings. And then Vincent Langer was inviting me a lot of sessions to train with him. And back then I was way behind him. So there was no chance to keep up with him. But yeah, he then got me into the back then North Heads and Fnatic team. And this is basically how it started. So I got some gear here and there, and then moved and worked my way up to. And I would say it was a good national deal. And now I have a pretty good deal, and I'm super happy with the Patrick team. So I can now take on, even as now the PWA Tour, just the next step. Then I can build maybe an audience, and then experience a lot more.
Yeah. Interesting for me, like, when you change sponsors, because it's a big deal, isn't it? Changing sponsors, especially with
it is.
slalom. And
I never wanted to do it.
No, it's difficult. Yeah. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's pretty. It takes a lot of work also to change sponsors, because it's not only what you see, like the main sails and boards, it's also the extensions, the masts. Over the years you bought a lot of spare masts and so on, and maybe wave gear and all that stuff. So if you change your main sponsors every year, you also have to get that with you. And it was just, I don't know how to say it, but I really was just looking for different gear. I never did it in the past, but this summer or last summer I just tried different gear to see what other brands have. And this basically opened my mind a little bit. And So a friend of mine was really interested in the Patrick sails, or in Patrick in general. And then he had the prototype. We had it here in North Germany, and then I also tried it, hopped on it, and I was so amazed by it because I thought, okay, let's just do it, one more sail, from a different brand, let's try it. But actually, it was one of the best sails I've tried from all the brands, and I couldn't believe it, because I think everyone is a bit like what marketing does, Patrick only has sales since 2 or 3 years, how should they be able to keep up? But in the end, what I learned also now, what time and money he invests into the development is insane. I think it's as much as with other brands, but with just a much smaller team and so on. So
I mean, the interesting thing, anyone who's heard Patrick on the podcast will know, he's quite a dedicated bloke.
Yes.
So if he goes into something, he goes into it.
Yeah, he's not going to leave unfinished.
Yeah, I mean, he literally has only been designing sails a few years. So, it is kind of crazy when I see some of the results he's had, with Vorenberg as well, and, different people, Cousin, and you think, he's obviously done something decent there, and pretty quickly. It's an interesting program, actually. Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Right, let me have a look. We have more questions here. Niels, we have to get you on the podcast, fella.
Oh yeah.
And people who don't know, Michele's got obviously a good YouTube channel as well. He's been putting out some great content. So, search him on YouTube. I'm sure you'll find him. Stick his name in there, and he's got his own channel. And it's going to be, I guess, what I said at the beginning, if people are just tuning in, but we're going to try and follow you throughout this year and speak to you at the end of events. That's the plan. Because doing your first full year is definitely different to picking like one event like Silt that you know very well. And it will be very interesting to hear your thoughts of how it goes. So you have to look forward to that. But obviously, you're going to be doing stuff on your channel as well. So if you want to see the video and you want to see all that bit of stuff, definitely chuck him a follow to see how he gets on. I'm sure he'll appreciate the support.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the shout out.
No worries. Okay. Jane saying, did you ever have limitations, for example, your local spot where you don't have the opportunity to train or get better? Yeah. What were your main limitations kind of growing up or getting to this point? You seem quite focused. Like just listen to you seem like you had a very strong focus. Well, as soon as you got into it, you were like, okay, that's where I want to go. Boom. Is that how it works, or is that just how you are now? Or is
so as I said in the beginning, until I was 18, I was not able to drive. And basically I was limited to when my parents had time, which was not so often, to go sailing. And then we had also other good youth on the national tour, like Julian Podgarant and Lars Paustian, and also some other names. And I could see them, they were training a little bit also during the week, and in the end, I could still keep up and most or sometimes beating them. So I think I had a good, mindset to go even with little time and doing some extra rounds even after the eliminations are done to keep up with what they are doing during the weeks. So I think this is what helped me in the early stages. And then as soon as I was able to drive to the spots and was going windsurfing on my own, I really just put in all the work, driving 2 hours every day just to improve a lot.
I find it interesting because that's kind of my background as well. Everyone says, how are you so keen, Ben? And I honestly think there's something to do with growing up where you haven't got it on a plate.
Exactly.
You can't just walk out the door, because if you really want it, if you're going to become a windsurfer, like my parents live 2 hours from the sea, our closest bit of water is an hour and a quarter a lake. And we used to go every weekend, and I'd have to wait for the weekend, and I'll be at school seeing the trees moving. I'll be like,
it's terrible.
It's horrible. And I'm seeing,
I think everybody knows it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a horrible thing, especially when you've got friends that live on the sea and, they're literally sailing after school. And it used to honestly get me. And I say this story a few times, but I always remember going to Maui for the first time. And I got there, and a few of the guys, I was like, oh my God, right, we're going to go. And they're like, nah, I'm not going to go out. It looks shit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
are you kidding? It was like, I'm in my shorts. It's windy. There's a wave. There wasn't even much of a wave, but I'm like, this, you know, and you realize when you live in those places, you do get a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, that's pure luxury. If you can take your days, pick your days. You know, we basically have the same on Tenerife when we are training 4 days a week. When it's still windy, the other 3 days of the week, most of the guys are not going out, at least not on slalom gear, maybe on wave gear or something. But yeah, because at some point you're just getting tired. And for example, I think it's pretty common in the windsurf industry or in the slalom thing that you overtrain a lot. I think it's just everybody does it, so you also have to do it. Because I think in no other sports you're doing 4 hours fully under tension, you know,
It's true.
simulating a competition every day, and then go to the gym afterwards, you know, maybe go surfing in the morning. So I know that my body can't handle maybe as much as other people, so I try to keep it low and consistent. But yeah, it's pretty easy to just go all out, and then after a week you're ill and gonna miss another week. So
now, it's interesting what you say there, because I definitely see that in windsurfing. It is
do you also
very
see it
easy.
in the waves though? I have no idea how
It's
they
a bit
go.
different, because I think it's very easy in the waves to not train, to just go sailing.
Okay. To
You
just
know,
enjoy it, you know, don't force yourself.
exactly. And I think there's a certain amount of people who maybe don't train. You know, they don't look at it like, okay, I'm going to go and train a heat. I'm going to time myself. I'm going to sail over power just in case in the heat I get on too big a sail. I'm going to try on a bigger board and force myself out of my comfort zone, which I think in racing people do. You know, they actually train outside of what they usually would. Whereas in wave sailing, and I catch myself used to doing it as well, I'd be like, oh, I'll just take it's not perfect, I'm not going to go. And if you really want to be the best, and you see this with Brasilio, I think, and a couple of others, the way they train, Swifty is a good one. When I think they were with MPG team, I remember hearing stories of Scott Sanchez, who was the boss, kind of telling Francisco Goya and these guys to basically go sail overpowered and go do a heat. And you have to do the moves. And we're going to time it. We're going to score it. And, you know, I feel like if you really want to win a world title, that's actually how you've got to train. It might not help you in your free sailing, but in terms of competition heats, they're the differences sometimes. And also the mind. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, I worked on that late in my windsurfing career, and I know I should have worked on it a lot earlier, because sports psychology, I think, in windsurfing is super underrated. And I think there's a lot more going on there. And you see it in every sport. You see a footballer go from the best in the world, and the next season he's terrible. And there's no way he's just got terrible. You know,
true. Good point.
There's something in the brain, you know, his family life, his setup, his coach, he's not happy, whatever it might be. There is something going on. He doesn't just get terrible.
Yeah, at this level in any professional sports, even a few percent can make you drop out of, you know, your top 10 or whatever, or you're not in football, you're not the best at your position anymore in a team. And then it goes quickly that, you know, you have less good results.
Yeah, I think that's the main one for me. Like looking in at the slalom, people have to work out how to get themselves in that mindset, because there's so many guys I see training, they're working on speed. That's all they care about is speed. And when you watch a race, it doesn't always come down to speed.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
There's a lot of other things. So I always find that interesting as a commentator watching, because you obviously see everything. You watch every race, and because you're commentating, you're looking for these little things to talk about. So I guess you notice a lot, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Right, let's have a look. What else we got on here?
As you were talking about the waves a little bit, are you gonna join a wave here and there? Because I think I saw you on Sylt in these wildcard rounds. No?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. I still like. I think everyone's like this. Whenever you've been pretty decent at a sport, you always still think you can do it, and I still think I can do it. The only thing is, I'm not training, and I noticed that, like in my career, when I started spending time in Australia, and this goes back to the comfort zone thing, I feel like my competition sailing got maybe worse. Whereas when I was sailing Cape Town, which is a lot harder, it's more choppy, it's more gusty, it's more hectic. You know, my competition sailing was loads better. And I also think you get to an age where you lose the drive. Like, I've got massive respect for Bjorn, Antoine, who have just for years and years kept that drive to keep pushing.
Yeah, that's
Because
insane.
there is a point when you get to a certain age and you don't feel like you have to prove it anymore. And as soon as they lose that, you see it. They go, you know, you don't have to be the best. And you need to really want it. Like, the differences between in the top of these sports and the slalom guys, the ones who really want it, that extra meter that you fight for, and maybe at the end of the race, it makes a difference. And those little things, I think, are really important. So for me, my main focus is not trying to beat someone at the moment. I like beating people, don't get me wrong, but I'm not training for it. So I almost
in the end you just need to be happy with your sailing, because especially in waves with the seeding, it's much more luck based to be honest.
It's difficult. I'll tell you what, the seeding is a massive thing in wave sailing. If you don't get a double elimination, and again, I've talked about this before, but you get stuck in, let's say, 16th ranking, you end up with Costa or Victor
which can always happen. There are so many really high scoring, good guys. And then if you're facing them, this is why I didn't like, for example, wave sailing in competition. We also had it in Germany, and I joined. And for example, there, most of the time, the other youth riders had better seeding. I was against Klaas or someone. And then in the end, that decided the outcome of the event, because back then we had this overall ranking. So basically all disciplines were combined. And then the problem is in waves, if you don't advance one round, you're already 9 places behind someone. So how would you make that up in slalom, for example?
It's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, what's your take in bringing it back to slalom? Is big fleet racing? Do you prefer big fleet racing?
I hate it. I totally hate it. Mainly because I'm not good at it. This is the main thing. But for example, I like also the training on Tenerife, and I like PWA because it's always kind of clean racing. You have somewhat of a good course. The reaches are similar length. You have 8 guys, and then on some national level, I don't know, you have 16 guys in the final, and you only need one person to destroy your start, and then you can't keep up with the top guys you're usually battling with. So I think it just adds some, it's not as consistent with the results that come out.
It's interesting because I've talked about this from a media point of view as well. 8 people is amazing because you're always talking about 1 and 2 because they're probably having a fight. You're always talking about 3, 4, and 5 because they're in the battle for trying to get in. And then, so you're basically covering nearly all of the fleet all the way through. And when you cover something like a course race with a massive fleet, you're literally only talking about the top 3 guys. And if you're, say there's 60 guys, if you're 10th, that's amazing. But you might not ever get seen or mentioned in the whole race. Whereas if you're 10th, let's say in the PWA, you've probably won a losers final. You've been battling for the top positions, or you've scraped in. So you've been, so media wise, it's a really, like you say, clean format, and you basically see everything. I think it's quite interesting.
I prefer quality over quantity, but sometimes also with the slalom eliminations, if we're in spots where it's super, let's say, gusty, like Japan, when it's up and down and it takes, 3 hours to finish one elimination, then for sure it's a downside that we only have one result after 3 hours. But in the end, I think it's quite fair over the long term.
Yeah. I always thought, actually, for the PWA, if it was a dodgy forecast, they should just do the first race, mass participation, just to get the result in. But it would be, but I tell you what's interesting, and everyone goes, oh no, but you'd be surprised how many times the best guy is up there and winning.
Yes, it is.
But the middle guys,
that's where it's chaotic, for sure. Exactly. It's insane, how good guys are, even when the conditions, for example, if we have seaweed or if it's gusty, it's still the best guys will be at the top, but if you're in the middle, everything can happen. And so far, I've always been in the middle. So I'm not a big fan of anything like that.
All right, let's go through a few more questions. Neil saying that's super interesting for speed. I use 24 to 28 inch lines to get the lift. Most of the freesailing, so I've never get slalom gear using the long lines. I mean, we're talking long lines when it's windy and crazy, I'm guessing.
Yes, it's like maximum overpowered. You wish you had one size smaller sail and so on.
What's your normal, like for normal sailing?
Okay, if the maximum is for falling 50, then probably normal sailing is still 46, 45. I don't know.
I actually spoke to, because Simmer don't make lines that long, and I actually said to Patrick when I saw them, I think at the Defi last year, I said, "Send me some of them." Still hasn't sent me any, but I know, but it's interesting. I went foiling the other day and crashed, and I tell you, it was because my lines were too short. I could feel it. I wanted to get lower because I wanted to be further away. And
you're pushing both hands because you want a bit of more distance, a bit more privacy.
You know, I'm not any stretch like you guys are doing, but I was just cruising. But even then, I could feel I wanted to be further around, which was even more interesting because I know when foiling first came out, they were all saying short lines and whatever
but to
else.
Be fair, it was more course racing, no?
Yeah,
this is also a big difference. But I mean, you did for sure more speed than I did. Do you use smaller or longer than in slalom compared to?
Well, I got told my harness lines were too long by Mr. Andy Laufer. Like, I was going down, he's like, and I had 32s. I think I had 32s, and he was saying they were too long, or 30s. But I just felt more comfortable. And I think when you're lighter, I feel I need to be further away, because when I was closer in, that means I'm more upright, and I was just getting lifted. So what you can imagine when you're flying down a speed course and it's a canal and you can see the other side, the last thing I wanted to do was get lifted. And I've got all these big guys telling me to shorten the lines. I'm like, look at the size of you. You know, there's a big difference. So
and in the end, control is speed, you know?
Yeah.
So I think everybody just needs to find the right trim.
It's true. Like, horses for courses, as they say. Question, what's this? Foil registered for the... what foil have you registered?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So in the winter, I was using... I was using Loke and then F4, but I was basically always waiting for the Patrick foil because I don't know if that's... public or well, it's not.
Hey Michelle, what details can you share about the new Patrick secret foil?
Okay, this is what I wanted to say. It's I think it's not a secret that Patrick is also developing a foil, and so far I think he did a great job, because last week when I was actually in France to test the foil stuff, and then next to it we did the tour stop, the French tour, and I think so far I have one set of the Patrick foil, but it's all still prototypes and not the best, because the Frenchies kept it for sure. Yeah. So basically my plan is to register the Patrick foil, and I think Alex, a cousin, will bring the parts for me to Garda. And then I thought, man, I cannot race with it if I just get the parts 1 week prior to the event.
I was about to say, you're just going to go straight on it cold.
That would be hilarious, you know, that's not possible. But in the end, I tried it in France. So with each sail size, I did 1 or 2 sessions. And first, I thought they just say it's the easiest foil there is. But, you know, it's not only marketing right now, but for sure, I also feel the same. It was insane that I would now take this foil, even if I only had 10 sessions maybe with it. So
really,
it's maybe it's not the fastest, but what we tested, or what Alex and Nico tested, it's just super easy and consistent around the course. So, and this is what we are aiming for. So do
you find much difference between foils? Like, because I know their production, they're all the same, but obviously, as we know, fins are the same. You get the same fin, but it's never exactly the same.
It's never the same. Yeah.
No. So do you have to test like that, and then you get good ones, bad ones, or not even good or bad, but different?
You mean with the same brand or different brands?
With the same brand.
I think for sure, if you ask the IQ guys, there you can see it. They have, I don't know, 5 sets of foils because the mast has different flex and torsion. You have the wings, different how sharp they are maybe from production, and they are not allowed to sand it. But I think in general, it's less sensitive than on the fin, except for the mast. The mast, you really need a stiff one. But so far I heard, with the brands, sometimes you can decide whether you have the high modulus super stiff mast or the normal mast, and then these two are pretty consistent in each range. So
okay. Interesting. That'd be interesting to see which foil you end up using. I guess you've got to use the Patrick one. Well, you don't have to, I guess. It's you're going to use the one that's going to suit you the most.
Yeah.
Pro windsurfing is underpaid. Yeah. Compared to the effort of training. Well, I would where it's underpaid, it depends what you say. I think it's quite well paid for the actual size of the industry, but obviously compared to
that's it.
The real world, it's obviously underpaid.
Because in the end, I don't do it for profit. I just want to, perform, show something. But when I think about the risk that we take on the body and windsurfing, for sure, if it's wave for slalom, it's not super healthy for the body, the impacts, the sailing position. So you're definitely stressing your body a lot. Though. It's freaking cool. Yeah, that's why we all do it. So nothing to complain.
Okay, a couple more questions. When you're on the water alone, how do you train? What are your goals for a session? That's an interesting one, actually. What do you do? Do you GPS? Is that what you work on certain things? What's your main stuff?
Okay, so this is also a question I got from a mate that was on Tenerife, Bob van der Burg, a Dutch guy, I think he's also doing his first PWA tour now this year, and he also asked me, "Hey, I realize you improved a lot. How is that basically?" So, and then I told him that I never do a session without any goals. I never go free sailing because I simply don't enjoy it as much anymore. So I really always want to have something to do. And what you can practice alone is for sure just your technique on driving or on tags if you're course racing. So sometimes I have sessions where I go out for an hour or 1.5 and only do 100 jibes. To try to do different like circles, like wide, tight, try everything. Then most of the times I'm also simply just tuning my gear. I put some more downhole, less downhole, outhole, mast base positions, foot straps position, everything, and because this also helps me to stay entertained. If I have the pleasure to go out 4 or 5 times a week, if I go on the same spot with the same wind, it can get boring. So I try to do something. And for example, Enrico told me that one thing a few years ago, that you should never stop working on your gear. Always try different things, even if they don't seem that they help. In the end, you try 5 things and one of them will help you. And I think that's why he's one of the guy with the best tuned gear. And he's doing the R&D for JP Near Pride, and he's putting in a lot of work. Also,
he's into it, isn't he? I mean, that makes a big difference. Like being into it and interested. You see it with Nico Goya as well. They're really into it, and when you're into it, and you're going to get those little margins of gain, and maybe it won't be forever because maybe people catch up, but you'll get the heads up, and then maybe you're working on the next thing. So, you see it with Cowley Ciardi in the waves, working on his gear. And it definitely helps. And what you said earlier, actually, about trying gear, I've tried to tell a lot of people that we do the wave clinics in Cape Town and stuff. It's like, don't just think what you're on now, it's you. Because it could be you. Yes, you can always work yourself, but you could always work on your gear. Doesn't mean you need to change your board. You might need to change your fins or where your mast track is. Or definitely, if you get the chance, try someone else's equipment, because sometimes you don't know.
Yeah, I wish
I
I've
speak
done
to
that
some
earlier.
people saying, this is the best board ever. And I'm like, have you tried anything else? No. I'm like, you don't know. You might be, but you never know.
And I can totally understand that some people, like normal windsurfer, are a bit annoyed of this like gear topic with just trimming their own sail. And I get that, but if you have the time, maybe take a note before each session how long your extension is, and just do it next to your normal session, and then you will find something out, and you maybe also get a bit more fascinated about the technology behind how a sail is working and so on.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think we've got one more. Is it a question? Is it a thought? It's not about finding the best loser, but finding the winner. It's always the best who wins, doesn't matter. It's true. And I've said this before on the commentary. It's like the problem people have is like, and again, I've been one of those guys in the middle, but they don't care about me. If Philip Costa beats me every second round, it doesn't matter to the organizer. The organizer and the guys at home want to see the winner. And it's all about the competition, all about the winner. And in wave sailing, it's 100%. The second place guy might not be the second place guy in terms of level, because the winner might have beaten the second place guy in the third round previously. But in slalom, it's a little bit more different. When you've got, a week of racing in different conditions with lots of different heat formats, it's very rare you don't get the best, or at least someone who deserves to be on the top for that week. I think that's what's interesting about it. Oh, hang on. We got another question as I say that. What's your recipe for good starts?
Oh, man. Oh, man, that's tough, because starts, for example, this is one of the only things you can't really train when you're alone. At least I didn't find a good method. Maybe if you have a mark at your local spot, you can take your time and go past it. The good recipe is one thing I can say is to check the line and try to learn if it's now better to start at the boat or at the pin, so which one is more favored. But also think about what other riders are in your race, because, for example, if I know I can win a race because there's not the world champion in this heat, if I'm lucky, then I can take a more risky position, for example, the pin end, because I know I have the same speed like everyone, so I will be first to the line. But if I start at the pin end and I have Enrico above me, Matteo, and all the names, then for sure I will not end up even behind them, but behind everyone, because they're destroying my air. So just understand where the good riders are starting, and if you're good enough, fight with them. But if not, just rather take a start from a worse position, but have free wind, have your speed, your room to go through the waves, and then that should
I think that's really good advice. And some people kind of lack that. I'm not as good as him. You know what I mean? They're like, I can take him. And then they get into that massive battle.
I mean, to some point, you have to be like that, because also last year, I knew that some people are faster than me in Germany, but I still wanted to start at the pin, because I knew from the middle I would not win anyways. Okay. So I would never roll them. So why not trying to at least keep them behind me? So this can also work, but always depends.
That's good. All right, dude. I'll let you go, but it's going to be an interesting one. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to kicking off. Actually, Garda. There's fingers crossed we get some wind. You'll go in a couple of days before. Is that the plan?
Yes. Yeah, I will.
Okay. Well, I'll have to have a sneaky look, see what foils you're on at the start. We're going to be following your progress. So thanks for joining us. And
was a pleasure.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so there you go. That is it. Michele Becker, we're going to be following his progress throughout the year. Like I said at the beginning, doing a full year on the PWA, first ever full year. I'm going to be interested to see him. We're going to be talking to him after each event, getting a bit of lowdown, seeing, what went wrong, what went right, who was saying what, a bit of background information. We'll obviously be getting Matt Check and these guys who are regulars on there. Going to be an interesting one. So stay tuned to the channel. Also, I've been meaning to do a speed update, but it's been very hectic. I will do one because they are doing the World Championship of Speed down in the south of France now. They've had a couple of days, not been the windiest. I saw Vincent Woutner's setting the time on the fin with a couple of the PWA boys there. I heard it was gusty and this and that, but still, the big man from Belgium at the top. And obviously they've had the foil out there as well. So like I said, I'll do a little bit of an update on that. So stay tuned to the channel and we will see you for Send It Sunday. Although I'm not sure what's happening for Send It Sunday because the Simmer team have just turned up and they want to do a photo shoot. So anyway, more coming.